This is the Valve Steamdeck. It's something special. You could turn on half rate shading, which halves the rate of the shading. But so for instance, you want to browse the internet, World Wide Web. I heard it's really cool. And there you go. Alright, what's up? So we're gonna do, I don't know if it's gonna be a quick video, but we're gonna do a video. We are taking a look at a piece of technology. I've had it for a while, but I've been holding off making a video on it just because kind of making sure how I really feel about it. So what are we looking at? We're looking at this. This is the Valve Steamdeck. Probably heard a lot about this over the past year or so. So what is this? Long story short, it's a portable computer. Thing is, it's not a console per se. It's got that portable form factor such as the Nintendo Switch, 2 thumbsticks, it's got your D-pad, it's got your shoulder buttons, it's got your shoulder bumpers, and it's got extra buttons here on the back. And of course you got your ABXY buttons, a touch screen, and it has 2 trackpads here on the front. And it's got a couple extra buttons here, like essentially your start button, your back button, and then a settings button or menu button and a Steam button. I gotta stress, this is not a game console. It's not gonna play every game available on the Steam library the way a Nintendo Switch would play every game available on the Nintendo library. This will play a good majority of the Steam games on the Steam store, just like any computer would almost play most games on the Steam store. Depending on what your setup is for a computer, you might be able to play most games, you might not be able to play all games. If you have a lower end computer, you might only be able to play the Steam games that are for sale that are from a couple of years ago. If you have the high-end system like my Ryzen 5800X, whatever it is, with the Radeon 6700 XT, I can play pretty much any modern game, just not at the maximum setting. If this was my older system, say my Sandy Bridge 2400 with the R7 265X, I probably wouldn't be able to play any of the new games on the Steam Marketplace. That's the concept that you have to get in your head when it comes to the Steam Deck. It looks like a game console, it plays for the most part like a game console, it feels like a game console, but at its core it really is just a gaming PC in the palm of your hands. Now if you can get past that and realize what it is, this thing is truly amazing. Gaming on the go, typically you're playing on a Nintendo Switch or you're playing on a laptop. Nintendo Switch, great console, great games if you like the Nintendo game library. Laptop, great, but for the most part you're limited by processing and GPU power unless you're able to purchase like a dedicated gaming laptop, which is well over $1,000 on the lower end of the gaming laptops, up to $1,500 and above for the higher end gaming laptops. But most people, they have a normal laptop. They have a Dell, I have an Inspiron. Gaming, gonna be okay, not gonna be ideal, because you're pushing, in many cases now, you're pushing displays at resolutions well above 1080p. And when you pair higher resolution gaming with these discrete but still mobile level graphics and CPUs, doesn't really end up for a good time in terms of your gaming experience. But your mileage will vary. But that's the beauty of the Steam Deck, because for the most part it's pushing your gaming experience onto this much smaller video screen. It's not pushing a 4K gaming experience. It's not pushing a 1440p gaming experience. It's not even technically pushing a 1080p gaming experience. This is less than a 1080p display natively. The games that are playing on this thing are being downscaled to the native resolution of this display, if not lower. When you do that, it allows your modern games to run better on this device, even though it's not quite a 5800X or a 6700 XT graphics and CPU, because it's only having to worry about putting it on this small screen right here. You can get acceptable gaming performance on this. And you do have the ability to throw the image up onto a TV through an HDMI adapter, which is okay, but it also limits your resolution going out, because if you start pushing up into 1080p, 4K, 1440p, this does not have enough power to push those resolutions. This is a mobile gaming experience for PC gaming in your hand. Remember that, you're gonna have a really good time with the Steam Deck. There are games that work great, they're made for Steam Deck. There are games that are partially tested and they work for the most part. There's those different levels of compatibility. For the most part, you can play the good majority of the Steam library. There's so many games on my Steam library. I have the 256 gigabyte model right here. That was not nearly enough. I had to buy another memory card. I got it here right now. I got a 512 gigabyte micro SD card here, and it works very well. The majority of my games are run off of this micro SD card anyway. Haven't really noticed anything as long as you buy a high quality micro SD card. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, really great machine. Like I said, once you boot up like a modern PC game onto this, it's something special. It's got one USB-C port. You can hook this up to a hub to have HDMI output, to have USB-A input. Still got a volume jack, but you can hook up Bluetooth headphones to this, of course. Then you got fan ports down here. Actually, I think this is intake, and then this is definitely exhaust. This thing gets pretty hot in terms of the exhaust that's coming at the top. More often than not, when I'm playing on this, on any sort of demanding-ish game, it's got hot air coming out the top, and it's got a fan that's not loud, but it is noticeable. It takes a lot of CPU and GPU power, so it's definitely going to generate some heat. But in terms of the areas that you're touching, you don't even notice it. The only way you'll notice is if you put your hand above the ports up here and you feel the air coming out. Alright, so the Steam Deck, it comes in the 64, 256, or 512 gigabyte model, powered by a Zen 2 AMD CPU, or CPU, APU, I'm not quite sure. But it's a 4-core, 8-thread processor that runs from about 2.4 gigahertz to 3.5 gigahertz. A good amount of power there. The onboard GPU is an RDNA 2 based GPU that runs from 1 gigahertz to 1.6 gigahertz. 16 gigabytes of DDR5, low power DDR5 memory, NVMe storage for the 256 and 512, and then you have eMMC storage for the 64 gigabyte, 45 watt power supply, 40 watt hour battery, USB-C that can support display out, up to 8K display at 60 Hz or 4K at 120. You ain't gonna be gaming at that, I promise you that. And USB 3.2 Gen 2. So native resolution is 800. 1280 by 800, so 800p. IPS LCD, 7 inches, 60 Hz refresh rate, 400 nits brightness, and it runs the Steam OS operating system. But that, in a nutshell, is the Steam Deck. Here's my Steam Deck. Let me go ahead and load it in. And as mentioned before, so you do have a touch screen, so you can use your controller. And then you also have touch pads. If you press this Steam button down here and hold, you'll see you can now manipulate a mouse cursor that pops up. And it's the same thing here. You can use a joystick as your mouse. The right trigger functions as your mouse click. If you want to go to the main menu, hit Steam, and it brings up this sub menu over here that lets you go to things like your store. Here's the Steam store. So when you go to the Steam Deck store, you'll notice most importantly, there's this section right here. If you can see it, great on deck. So the games under this category, these are like perfect for your Steam Deck. They've been tested and they're all guaranteed to run really well on the Steam Deck, and of course control really well on the Steam Deck. That is one of the challenges when it comes to the Steam Deck, just like a PC, control. So you might get a game that can run, but it might not have a controller profile that lets it work the way you would expect it to work. A lot of PC games are mouse and keyboard based. It doesn't quite always translate to the game controller, although most of the time it does. but sometimes it doesn't, and that's where you might come against some issues with the Steam Deck. You can always just get a USB-C hub and plug in a mouse and a keyboard. We got games like older games like Dead Space. Actually, no, this is the new Dead Space game. RimWorld, God of War, Uncharted Collection. On my Steam Deck library, I got Ace Combat 7. I got Apex Legends, Dishonored, Dishonored 2, Doom, Elden Ring. Now here's the thing. So this is my all games library. So this is every game that I own on Steam. These games are not necessarily guaranteed to work. Like say for instance Elite Dangerous, you'll be able to see this here, game info, and it will say Steam Deck compatibility unsupported. Now that doesn't mean the game's not gonna run. That just means the game hasn't been vetted or tested yet. But when you have your Steam Deck library, you also have this section, Rate on Deck. And this is going to show you what games on your library are already running great on the Steam Deck. So for instance, Ace Combat 7 runs great. Doom, Dishonored, looks like just Dishonored 1, though I've heard Dishonored 2 runs fine. Elden Ring, Shadow Complex, and Shredder's Revenge, Stray. Those games run great. I also have some non-Steam games here. So one of the beautiful things about the Steam Deck is things like emulation or running games that aren't on the Steam Deck. Because remember, this is a PC. For instance, I have games on the GOG library. Now, GOG is not made by Steam. It's actually a competing store. But here we have this program I downloaded through Linux, Heroic Games Launcher. When we launch that, but as you'll see here, I have Cyberpunk. So Cyberpunk is installed on my Steam Deck through the Heroic Game Launcher. Go ahead and play that now. And no, I don't want to update it. And as we see here, Cyberpunk is running okay, not great. But you can already hear, here, let me put the, that's the fan is definitely running. Like, you can definitely feel that heat. Let's see, as we see here though, we are holding at 35 frames per second. For a game like Cyberpunk, where you're not really worried about the competitive nature, it's going to be fine. Then, it works. A little bit buggy, and I've noticed this. I don't know if it's a thing when the CPU gets overstressed. The audio wigs out a little bit, like it's like a little choppy, a little distorted. And I notice it when I'm playing games that really push it, which pretty much is just Cyberpunk, because optimization is not great apparently. But as you can see, totally playable. This is a game that I first played on my PC. I've definitely put more time into Cyberpunk 2077 via the Steam Deck versus ever on my PC. So, but yeah, it runs pretty. Yeah, that's what she gets. So we're at 35, 37 FPS. And as you can see, Cyberpunk runs, for the most part, pretty good on Steam Deck, so which says a lot. The only thing is, when you're playing Cyberpunk or like a graphically intensive game, your battery power goes down very quickly. So on this button here, you have the three dots here, it's like your options or something like that. You can kind of go into quick settings, like changing your brightness to make it brighter, make it darker, save some battery life. You can even change power setting, limit your frame rate, to limit your refresh rate. You could turn on half rate shading, which halves the rate of the shading, and you can even do thermal power or TDP limit, which you probably don't want to do any of that stuff because it's going to mess up your gameplay. It's going to make the game run a lot slower, but your battery life will be good. Best thing to do is bring a power bank that's PD rated, or bring your adapter to charge it and be done with it. Or just play games that aren't as demanding, like older first-person shooters. Those aren't going to stress your CPU or GPU that much, and you should be good. But what's cool here is you have performance overlays that you're not going to be able to see here because we're not in, but it kind of displays like your FPS, battery drain, power usage, CPU usage, things like that. So another cool thing is you have Linux. So let's go ahead and switch over to Linux, or actually SteamOS, which I believe is based on Linux. So switch to desktop, and then it's going to switch to the desktop really quick. And boom, here we go. So when you switch over here to the SteamOS desktop, it's basically like a PC. But you got your start menu here, and then you got your app store over here. You want to download apps, and of course you got a web browser. In this case, I got the Chrome web browser. You can get Firefox. But so for instance, you want to browse the internet, the World Wide Web. I heard it's really cool. I heard there's this YouTube channel called S47 Industries. Let's go ahead and take a look at that, see what that's all about. It looks like they went to Roostar's Hot Chicken recently, but they also said 2022 is history. We're on to 2023. Let's see what that's all about. And as you can see, you can watch your YouTube videos on your Steam Deck. Although it seems like the quality isn't as good. Yeah, at least to me, it doesn't seem as good as quality. Log into Netflix, you can log into any of your web streaming services, and that's pretty much the gist of the desktop. It's pretty much a full-fledged desktop PC, just not as full-fledged as Windows. Let's go ahead and go back to the gaming mode. Just go right here, double-click. Take a little bit of time to get back to the gaming mode. There you go. And we are back in business. Alright, and that's pretty much it. Steam Deck. It's really portable PC in a much more portable form factor than a gaming laptop. Check that expectation at the door. This is not a Nintendo Switch experience. There's going to be some assembly required. In the case of this, some fidgeting required. But once you do that, if you can put in that time, your efforts will be greatly rewarded. Most of the modern games, you'll be able to play it on the go, in your hand, without having to set up a freaking laptop over at the dentist office. That's really what this is all about. You want to play your PC games, your PC-based games, in your hands. Overall, I definitely can recommend this now. When I first got it, because I was kind of on that other mentality, I wasn't quite 100% on board, but now that I've kind of figured out, like I said, it's a gaming PC, definitely on board. I do recommend, so like I said, this is a 256 gigabyte model. The games run fine off of the micro SD. Micro SDs are not that expensive, even the higher performance ones that you need to run on the Steam Deck. Just get the base model, get that 64 gigabyte one. Don't even bother putting games on it, just get a 512 micro SD, or better yet, just get a couple of micro SDs and you'll be good. I mean, you don't need to spend that extra money on the NVMe SSD because the performance of the micro SD, good enough. I know the 512 model has like special coatings. I don't have it, so I don't know if it looks that good. Maybe that's enough. To me, I don't think it's worth that. That's going to be worth it. One thing to keep in mind, you can upgrade the SSD inside. It's not your standard M.2 form factor. It's like a special, smaller form factor NVMe SSD. You don't really see them in the stores. I've never seen them at Best Buy so far as I've seen. Get on eBay, get on Amazon. I've heard they're kind of pricey. All right, and with that, let's go look at it, and we'll catch you all on the flip.
Let's bust some crime. Patrick. Flashback. Dino.
it.